The story of the Museo Nacional de Antropología begins in the early 1960s, during a time when Mexico was redefining its identity, looking toward the future while honoring its ancient roots. President Adolfo López Mateos envisioned a grand museum that would unite the stories of Mexico's past under one roof, a place where every visitor could feel the spirit of the nation's ancestors. To bring this vision to life, he turned to one of Mexico's most brilliant architects, Pedro Ramirez Vázquez. Ramirez Vázquez was already known for his modern, yet deeply symbolic designs, buildings that reflected not just function, but meaning. He imagined a museum that would be more than walls and galleries. It would be a living monument to the people who shaped Mexico long before the Spanish arrived. Construction began in 1963, right in the heart of Chapultepec Park, a site that itself holds centuries of history. Just 1 year later, in 1964, the museum opened its doors to the public. The result was breathtaking, a structure that blended modern design with ancient inspiration, concrete and stone, with water and light. From the very beginning, the Museo Nacional de Antropología was seen not only as a museum, but as a symbol of Mexico's identity, a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the indigenous and the contemporary. It stood, and still stands, as a proud reminder that Mexico's strength lies in its roots, in the civilizations that laid the foundation for its culture, art, and knowledge. Inside its walls, millions of stories awaited discovery, stories carved in stone, painted on pottery, buried beneath the earth for centuries. All now gathered in one place for the world to see. The Museo Nacional de Antropología was, and remains, a national treasure, a testament to a country that never forgets where it came from. Before you even step inside the Museo Nacional de Antropología, the building itself takes your breath away. It's not just a structure, it's a masterpiece of modern architecture infused with ancient symbolism. Designed by the visionary architect Pedro Ramirez Vázquez, the museum was created to represent the harmony between the earth, the sky, and humanity. As you approach, the museum's facade stands tall and calm, blending sleek modern lines with textures that recall ancient temples. Every inch of the design has meaning. The open courtyards, the stone carvings, and the play of shadows and sunlight were all carefully planned to evoke the feeling of walking through a sacred space, a place where the past and present coexist. At the center of it all lies the museum's most iconic feature, El Paraguas, the umbrella. It's a massive concrete canopy, seemingly floating in midair, held up by a single pillar in the middle of the grand courtyard. Rainwater cascades down from its edges like a shimmering curtain, creating a mesmerizing waterfall that symbolizes the constant renewal of life. The single column represents unity, one nation supported by the strength of many cultures. Around this central space, open-air walkways connect the museum's 23 galleries, each one dedicated to a different region or civilization of ancient Mexico. Natural light floods the corridors, filtered gently through the canopies and courtyards, giving the impression that time itself moves slower inside these walls. The architecture doesn't just display history, it tells it. The way you move through the museum mirrors Mexico's own journey, starting from its earliest origins and gradually unfolding into the rise of mighty civilizations like the Maya and the Aztecs. It's a space designed not just for seeing, but for feeling, for understanding the depth of Mexico's cultural heartbeat through its design and atmosphere. Every sound of footsteps echoes like whispers from the past, and every gust of wind through the courtyard feels like a reminder that history is alive here. The Museo Nacional de Antropología is not simply a building, it's a living work of art, a temple of memory, and one of the greatest architectural achievements of the 20th century. The Museo Nacional de Antropología was never meant to be just a museum, it was envisioned as a living testament to Mexico's soul. Its purpose goes beyond displaying artifacts. It was built to tell the story of the people who shaped the land long before the rise of modern cities and nations. From the very beginning, the creators of the museum understood something profound, that the strength of Mexico lies in its diversity. The country is a mosaic of cultures, languages, and traditions, each one unique, yet bound together by a shared history of resilience and creativity. The museum's mission was to preserve and honor that unity within diversity. Inside its walls, every exhibition hall represents a different chapter in the vast and complex story of human civilization in Mexico. From the first hunter-gatherer communities that roamed its valleys to the powerful empires that built monumental cities, each culture is given its rightful place in the nation's narrative. The museum's vision was rooted in respect for the indigenous peoples who built temples, developed calendars, and created works of art that still astonish the world today. It was also an act of remembrance for the countless generations whose names we may never know, but whose hands shaped the stones and clay that tell their stories. For Mexican citizens, the museum serves as a mirror, reflecting who they are, where they came from, and how deeply their identity is tied to the land. For visitors from around the world, it's an open door into the heart of a civilization that has endured through conquest, change, and time itself. More than anything, The Museo Nacional de Antropología stands as a declaration that culture is eternal. Empires may fall, cities may crumble, but knowledge, art, and beliefs survive through the stories we choose to preserve. This vision to protect and share the memory of humanity is what gives the museum its spirit. It's not a silent archive, it's a dialogue between the past and the present, between ancestors and descendants, between what was and what will be. In every display case, in every sculpture and mural, that vision still lives, reminding us that history isn't just something we study, it's something we belong to. Long before the Great Pyramids of Teotihuacan and the temples of the Maya, before the rise of the Aztec Empire, and even before the first villages were built, ancient humans walked across the land that is now Mexico. Their story, silent, powerful, and written in stone, begins in the earliest halls of the Museo Nacional de Antropología. Letters. As you step into the first galleries, the atmosphere changes, the lighting softens, and the sound of the outside world fades away. Here, the museum takes you back tens of thousands of years, to a time when survival itself was the art of life. The exhibits show the tools, bones, and artifacts left behind by Mexico's earliest inhabitants, people who hunted, gathered, and adapted to a landscape that was both harsh and full of promise. You'll see stone knives carefully shaped by hand, spear tips crafted for precision, and fragments of pottery that revealed the birth of human creativity. Each object, no matter how simple, holds a whisper of intelligence, the spark that would one day ignite the great civilizations of Mesoamerica. In glass cases, fossilized remains tell another chapter of the story. The museum displays the skull of Penon woman, one of the oldest human remains ever found in the Americas, dating back nearly 12,000 years. Nearby, models and reconstructions bring prehistoric life to vivid reality. Mammoths roaming the plains, hunters moving silently through forests, and families gathering around firelight. These early people didn't have kingdoms, temples, or written language, but they had something just as powerful: the will to adapt and the imagination to create. From the clay figures found in Teotihuacan to the first signs of organized agriculture, the roots of culture and civilization were already forming. This section of the museum reminds visitors that every great empire began with ordinary human hands, hands that carved stone, lit fires, and dreamed of something greater. It's a humbling experience, standing before the evidence of humanity's first steps on this land, realizing that the foundation of Mexico's history was laid long before the first city rose from the earth. The Museo Nacional de Antropología honors these forgotten ancestors not as distant relics, but as the first storytellers of the land, the ones who began the long journey toward civilization, leaving behind the traces that still speak to us today. As you move deeper into the museum, the story of Mexico's first great civilization begins to unfold. The story of the Olmecs. They are often called La Cultura Madre, the mother culture of Mesoamerica, because so many of the ideas, symbols, and artistic styles that shaped later civilizations began with them. The Olmecs flourished over 3,000 years ago, along the humid lowlands of the Gulf Coast, in what is now the states of Veracruz and Tabasco. Long before the Aztecs or the Maya built their cities, the Olmecs were carving colossal monuments out of stone, charting the heavens, and laying the foundations of what would become Mesoamerican civilization. As you enter the Olmec Hall, the first thing that captures your attention is the sheer scale of their art. Towering stone heads, each weighing several tons, gaze silently through the room. Their faces are powerful and enigmatic, their features bold and timeless. Each one represents an ancient ruler, immortalized in their expressions calm yet commanding, as if still guarding the secrets of their people. These colossal heads are among the most famous artifacts in the entire museum. They were carved with incredible precision, transported across long distances without the use of wheels or metal tools, and placed at ceremonial sites that once served as centers of Olmec life. Standing before them, it's impossible not to feel the presence of something ancient, intelligent, and profoundly human. The Olmecs were not just skilled sculptors, they were thinkers, engineers, and spiritual innovators. They built complex ceremonial centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta, aligned with the movements of the stars and the changing of the seasons. They developed early writing systems, created intricate jade carvings, and crafted small figurines that capture the grace and emotion of the human form. Many of the symbols that appear in later cultures, the jaguar, the serpent, and the idea of sacred duality, can be traced back to Olmec belief. To them, the world was alive with spirit and energy. Every mountain, river, and storm carried divine meaning. Their art reflects this deep spiritual connection, blending the human and the animal, the earthly and the divine. In the museum, the Olmec Hall feels both mysterious and alive. Soft lighting and careful arrangement allow visitors to sense the weight of time, to stand face to face with the ancestors of Mexico's greatest civilizations. It's here that the story of culture truly begins, where human imagination first took monumental form. The Olmecs may have vanished over 2 millennia ago, but through their art and their influence, their spirit endures. They lit the first flame of civilization in Mesoamerica, a flame that would burn brightly through the ages, carried forward by those who followed. From the misty jungles of the Alma, the journey through the museum leads to one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world, Teotihuacan, the legendary city of the gods. Even today, the name carries mystery. No one knows exactly who built it, or what they called themselves. But their city became one of the most powerful and influential civilizations in all of Mesoamerica. The Teotihuacan Hall, in the Museo Nacional de Antropología, captures that mystery perfectly. Here, you walk into the shadow of greatness, surrounded by relics from a city that once stood as the heart of a vast empire. The exhibits are filled with sculptures, murals, and objects that reveal the sophistication of its people, a civilization that thrived over 2,000 years ago. Teotihuacan was enormous. At its height, it was home to more than 100,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at the time. Its grand avenues, pyramids, and palaces were built with precision and purpose. The Avenue of the Dead stretched for miles, lined with temples that rose like mountains carved by human hands. The Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent stood as monuments not just to power, but to cosmic order. In the museum, beautifully preserved murals from Teotihuacan show gods, warriors, and sacred animals painted in vivid reds, blues, and yellows. The artistry is breathtaking, symbolic, geometric, and deeply spiritual. Figures of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, appear again and again, a symbol of creation, knowledge, and renewal that would echo throughout later civilizations. Artifacts of obsidian, the volcanic glass prized by ancient peoples, glimmer softly under the display lights. Tools, blades, masks, and jewelry made from this mysterious black stone remind visitors of the skill and precision of Teotihuacan's artisans. Some of these objects were traded hundreds of miles away, proof that Teotihuacan's influence reached deep into Central America. No one knows why the city eventually fell. Some believe internal conflict or drought led to its decline. Others think invaders destroyed it. Standing in the Teotihuacan Hall, surrounded by fragments of temples, sculptures of deities, and relics of everyday life, you can almost hear the echoes of that once great city. You can imagine the priests climbing the pyramid steps to greet the rising sun, the markets bustling with traders, the hum of a metropolis that thrived long before modern civilization began. Teotihuacan is more than a ruin, it is a symbol of human ambition, creativity, and mystery. And, in the Museo Nacional de Antropología, its legacy continues to inspire awe in all who walk its silent hall. From the high plains of central Mexico, the journey through the museum takes us deep into the tropical jungles of the south, to the world of the Maya, one of the most advanced and enduring civilizations in human history. For over 2,000 years, the Maya built cities that rivaled the greatest of the ancient world. They were architects, mathematicians, astronomers, and poets, a people who turned stone, language, and time itself into works of art. As you step into the Mayan hall of the Museo Nacional, the space opens before you like a lost city rediscovered. Towering stelae carved with intricate glyphs rise from the floor, their surfaces covered with symbols that tell stories of kings, gods, and cosmic cycles. The dim lighting and warm tones create the feeling of being inside a sacred temple, where every sculpture and carving holds a fragment of divine knowledge. One of the hall's most striking displays is the magnificent recreation of the tomb of King Pakao, the ruler of Palenque. Here, you can see a life-sized reproduction of his sarcophagus lid, a masterpiece of Mayan art that depicts the king's descent into the underworld and his rebirth among the stars. It's a story carved in stone, showing how deeply the Maya understood life, death, and the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. Around the room, cases filled with jade masks shimmer softly under the lights, symbols of purity, power, and immortality. Each mask, made from hundreds of tiny jade pieces, reflects not only the skill of Mayan craftsmen but also their belief in transformation, that death was not an end, but a continuation of existence in another world. You'll also find finely painted ceramics that reveal the daily life of the Maya, feasts, rituals, battles, and moments of quiet reflection. Through these artifacts, we see them not as distant figures of history, but as real people, farmers, priests, scribes, and astronomers who studied the skies with astonishing precision. The Maya invented a complex calendar system and one of the earliest written languages in the Americas. They observed the movements of the planets and could predict eclipses centuries in advance. For them, time was sacred, an infinite loop of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Standing in the Mayan hall, surrounded by their art and intellect, you feel an overwhelming sense of connection, the same curiosity that drove them to chart the heavens lives within us today. Their temples, carved deep in the jungle, still align perfectly with the solstice sun, a reminder that their knowledge was not lost, only waiting to be rediscovered. The Mayan civilization may have faded, but its descendants still live across southern Mexico and Central America, speaking the languages of their ancestors and carrying forward traditions that reach back thousands of years. In this gallery, their story continues alive, eternal, and unbroken. As you move toward the final galleries of the Museo Nacional de Antropología, the air seems to grow heavier, filled with a sense of power and destiny. This is where the story of the Aztecs begins, the mighty civilization that rose in the Valley of Mexico and built an empire that would shape history forever. The Aztec Hall is the largest and most majestic room in the museum. The moment you enter, you are greeted by towering sculptures, intricate carvings, and relics that speak of a people who saw themselves as the heirs to the gods. The lighting is dramatic, casting long shadows over stone warriors, serpents, and deities, as if the past itself were alive within these walls. At the heart of it all stands one of the most famous artifacts in the world, the Aztec Sun Stone, also known as the Calendar Stone. It is the museum's crown jewel, a masterpiece of precision and cosmic symbolism. Carved from a single massive piece of basalt, it measures over 3.5 meters in diameter and weighs nearly 25 tons. Its presence commands silence. The sunstone is more than just a calendar, it is the Aztec vision of the universe. At its center is the face of Tonatiuh, the sun god, surrounded by symbols representing time, creation, and destruction. According to Aztec belief, the world had already passed through 4 previous ages, or suns, each destroyed by cataclysmic events. The 5th age, the one humanity now lived in, would eventually end as well, in earthquakes and fire. The carvings around Tonatiuh's face depict this eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a profound reflection of the Aztec worldview, where time was sacred and destiny unavoidable. Every line and symbol carved into the stone speaks of mathematics, astronomy, and faith intertwined. It is both a scientific instrument and a spiritual map of existence. Around the sunstone, the hall is filled with other treasures from the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, a city built on a lake that dazzled the first Europeans who saw it. Massive statues of gods like Coatlicue, the mother of all deities, stand with terrifying beauty, her skirt of serpents symbolizing both life and death. Nearby, smaller artifacts, obsidian, knives, jewelry, painted codices reveal the daily life and beliefs of a people who saw every act, from farming to warfare, as part of a cosmic balance. The Aztecs were visionaries of both empire and spirituality. They built temples aligned with celestial movements, performed rituals to sustain the universe, and maintained vast trade networks that connected distant regions. Their capital, with its temples rising from the water, was a marvel of engineering and culture, a city that seemed to touch the heavens. But standing before the sunstone, you realize something deeper. The Aztecs were not only warriors, but philosophers of existence. They understood that all life is part of a greater cycle, creation born from destruction, and light forever chasing shadow. The Aztec Hall captures this duality perfectly, the beauty and the ferocity, the grandeur and the humility before the cosmos. It's more than history, it's a confrontation with the essence of what it means to be human, to dream, to build, and to leave behind a legacy carved in stone. After walking through the ancient halls of the Olmecs, the Maya, and the Aztecs, the journey through the Museo Nacional de Antropología reaches its final and most human chapter, the story of Mexico's living cultures. Because history here does not end in the past. It breathes, sings, and dances in the present. This section of the museum reminds every visitor that Mexico's indigenous heritage is not something buried beneath time, it's alive, evolving, and still shaping the country's identity today. Over 60 distinct indigenous groups continue to inhabit Mexico, each with its own language, traditions, and worldview. The museum honors them not as relics of history, but as nations of the present, guardians of knowledge that has survived conquest, colonization, and modernity. The exhibits here are full of color and life. You'll see embroidered textiles from the Zapotecs and Mixtecs of Oaxaca, woven in bright reds, yellows, and blues patterns that tell stories of rain, corn, and family. There are hand-carved masks used in festivals by the Yaqui and Hickel peoples, each mask vibrant with meaning, used in dances that celebrate the eternal relationship between humans and nature. You'll also find musical instruments, clay pottery, tools, and photographs that capture the rhythm of daily life in indigenous communities, proof that these traditions remain a living force. The Hickel Wix Arica art stands out as one of the most mesmerizing displays. Their intricate yarn paintings and beaded artworks are not mere decorations, they are visions, created through spiritual rituals and guided by peyote ceremonies. Each color and symbol represents a connection to the gods, the earth, and the universe. When you look closely, it feels like you're gazing directly into a sacred story, woven by hand. Nearby, displays of Totonac and Tarahumara culture showcase how ancient beliefs continue to blend with modern life. You see photos of ceremonies where centuries-old songs are still sung, and festivals where the dance of the velados, the flyers who descend gracefully from tall poles, continues to honor the gods of the wind and rain. This part of the museum is both humbling and hopeful. It shows how the same spirit that built pyramids and carved calendars still endures in the people of today. Despite centuries of challenge and change, indigenous Mexico remains proud, resilient, and profoundly creative. The museum doesn't treat these cultures as something frozen in time. Instead, it presents them as evolving, adapting, and alive proof that tradition and modernity can coexist. The voices of these communities echo through the exhibits, reminding us that the story of Mexico is still being written, every single day, in its villages, mountains, and cities. Here, surrounded by the art, music, and faces of modern indigenous peoples, you understand the true message of the Museo Nacional de Antropología, that history is not behind us, it's within us. The same hands that once shaped stone now shape fabric, wood, and art. The same stories that once filled temples now fill hearts and homes. This section is a celebration of continuity, a living bridge that connects the Mexico of yesterday to the Mexico of today. After walking through centuries of history inside the Museo Nacional de Antropología, it's impossible not to feel changed. Every hall, every sculpture, and every artifact tells a story, and together, they create a vision of Mexico unlike any other place on earth. But beyond its cultural treasures, the museum itself is an experience, one that every visitor to Mexico City should have at least once in their lifetime. The museum is located in the heart of Chapultepec Park, one of the largest and most beautiful urban parks in the world. As you walk toward it, you pass through tree-lined paths, where the sounds of birds and distant laughter mix with the soft hum of the city. Then, suddenly, the grand facade appears, a wide, modern structure of stone and glass, its clean lines reflecting both the ancient and the contemporary. The entrance leads you directly into the open courtyard, dominated by the iconic structure known as El Paraguas, the umbrella. Here, a massive stone column supports a floating roof, from which a shimmering waterfall of rainwater pours down into a circular pool. The sound of the water fills the air, echoing softly through the space, creating a sense of peace and reverence before you even enter the galleries. It's as if the museum welcomes you not with words, but with the language of nature, water, light, and wind. Once inside, visitors can explore 23 exhibition halls, arranged around this central courtyard. Each gallery is dedicated to a different culture, region, or period of Mexico's long history. From the prehistoric origins of humanity in the Americas to the rise of the Olmec, the glory of Teotihuacan, the brilliance of the Maya, and the might of the Aztecs, every section immerses you in a different world. Interactive displays, large-scale models, and life-sized reconstructions help you visualize how ancient cities once looked and how their people lived, worshipped, and dreamed. One of the most remarkable things about the museum is its atmosphere. Even when filled with visitors, there's a quiet respect that seems to flow through the air. Children stare in awe at the giant stone heads of the Olmec. Students sketch in notebooks beneath the shadow of ancient gods, and elders walk slowly, perhaps remembering their own heritage reflected in the artifacts before them. The museum is open Tuesday through Sunday, from morning until evening, and admission is surprisingly affordable. Guided tours are available in both Spanish and English, offering deeper insight into the history behind each piece. You can easily spend an entire day here, though even then, it's impossible to absorb everything. Every visit feels like only the beginning of a longer journey through Mexico's soul. When you step outside again, into the sunlight of Chapultepec Park, the sounds of the city return, children playing, vendors calling, the rustle of leaves in the wind. And yet, something feels different. You've just walked through thousands of years of human history. You've seen how art, faith, and ingenuity survived wars, empires, and time itself. You carry a quiet sense of connection to the land, to its people, and to the eternal story that binds us all. The Museo Nacional de Antropología is not just a destination, it's a reflection of Mexico's heart, vast, beautiful, and alive. It invites you to remember that we are all part of the same journey, the same search for meaning that began with the first humans, who shaped stone and dreamed of the stars.